Welcome to No Mama Girl Mama with your host, Naledi Stones, where we discuss all topics related to health and wellness for you and your family. In this episode, I speak with mother of two, Danielle Canny McDonald, about her personal experience with diastasis recti. So you may know this condition as abdominal diastasis, abdominal separation, DR, or the mommy tummy. And the big take-home message from this episode is go and get a pelvic floor physiotherapist assessment after having a baby. Whether you've had a vaginal birth, cesarean birth, whether you think you have any concerns, or maybe you haven't noticed any changes in your body, it's an area of our bodies that we can't see because it's inside of us. And so it's really important to go and get an assessment. I hope that you take something from this episode and enjoy. Welcome. I'm here with Danielle Canny McDonald, mother of two, and we're talking about diastasis recti today. So Danielle, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with me. I know you're at work, you're taking time out of your busy schedule. I really, really appreciate it. Can you just start by sharing a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. I have two children. One is 6 and one is 2. In my past life, when I was athletic, I was a rugby player, I was a runner, and I was very busy all the time, very fit. That's the part I lament. I was very fit back then. And I'm in sales, so I try to stay pretty active, and I do a lot of my sales in Toronto, so a lot of walking and just trying to keep active whenever I can at this point, even though I have mutineers taking up a lot of my time.
Yeah, of course, right? They do. They kind of dominate our lives after a while. So you're sharing your personal journey, as I said, with diastasis recti. Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, it's been a very rough one. So in the beginning, when I had my daughter, who's 6 now, I didn't have any idea that I had it. I went down to a size 2 and I was like, woo, this is amazing. I can hang glide on a Dorito to work now. And, I didn't know anything was wrong other than, sex was painful and I couldn't tell I had to go to the bathroom. But I thought those were just side effects of my C-section. I had an emergency C-section. So it wasn't until I went to a stroller fit class that someone brought up diastasis recti, and the woman coaching us went around and tried everyone in the group, and she said, "Oh, Danielle, you've got the biggest hole in class." So flattering.
Yeah.
And that's when I found out what it was, and I joined a fitness group, with a woman that specialized in helping get rid of that safely. So it's been very hard because it's kept me from doing some of the athletic things I'd like to do, and also it affects your relationship.
Right. So just going back to your pregnancy side of it, how big was that baby?
My daughter was 8'5" and a day or two late. So, a little on the heavier side, not huge.
Did you notice anything in your pregnancy? Do you think that there was, unusually exceptional separation during the pregnancy?
You know what? I didn't notice. I walked to work, to the subway back and forth, and was living in Toronto at the time. I had a very fit pregnancy. I was, it was the perfect pregnancy. Everything went fine. I didn't notice anything wrong other than, if I looked at stairs, my breath was like, but that was it.
Okay.
I didn't even notice anything after the pregnancy was wrong.
Okay.
Not with my abs, at least.
So I know, and I did get a chance to have an interview with one of the co-founders of Belly Inc. a few weeks ago. So she was talking about how you can usually tell because there's a little bit of a triangulation to your belly and the bulging in the middle. Did you notice anything like that? Could you see it when you look back? I mean, you didn't realize it at the time.
I'm not sure I noticed it after the first one that it was making the tent.
Yeah.
But I had a 4.5 finger difference. And though I was tiny, down to size 2, you couldn't tell. It was only if, when someone brought my attention to it that I knew that was happening. And it wasn't just I needed to lose weight or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then what did it look like? You said that you were at a program where somebody came around and did the check and noticed that you were so separated still. So what happened after that? Where did you go for treatment?
At the time, I don't think I even went to a pelvic physical therapist. There's no information, because when I had gone to my doctor or nurse practitioner, they don't know what you're talking about. They're not trained in Canada or America how to recognize this. So I wasn't given any way to fix it. It wasn't until I got a flyer in my neighborhood for someone who helps with mummy tummy, that I needed to exercise differently and never do crunches and not to do the Roman chair anymore, and all those sorts of things that you think are going to pull it back together. So actually, after my first child, I didn't notice it physically looking at it, and I was just lucky because I shrank down. So I went down a size lower than I was before the baby. So it just wasn't as obvious, and I wasn't doing sports where I did sit-ups. I just, got to play soccer a couple of times. I can't say that there was anything very noticeable other than I had these side effects that I thought, well, maybe it was the C-section, or maybe it's because she wasn't a tiny baby, with pain and not knowing for months that I had to go to the bathroom, that I'd urinate.
Right. So do you mind sharing more about, the emotional side of that? Like, what were you?
It was awful. I mean, because, you don't find a partner and decide to spend your life with them because you want to be just roommates. Right. So, it does a lot to your partner's self-esteem too. When you're, you're already tired with a kid, I'm tired, quit pointing that thing at me, I'm gonna cut it off with a butter knife. So, I just found myself to be more avoidant, and, a little worried, since I didn't even know if I needed to run to the restroom. Right. But I have to say, it did affect me personally, because it changed who I felt that I was and how I would typically behave, and just kind of part of my personality. It felt like it was changed, because with this pain, I didn't want to continue to try. The doctors or the nurses would say, oh, just keep trying. Oh, just use more lubricant. And those aren't the sorts of things that help when you have muscular problems.
Yeah. Okay. Do you mind me asking where you are in this now?
No problem. So my son was even bigger, and he was liberated a week early. So he was 8'11". Wow. And I felt, and he felt heavy. And I almost feel like he made it worse. So that's when I did start going to a pelvic physical therapist after my son, and, same size, separation. And I've noticed I have, in the small of my back over on one side, I've got pain. And I've gone to a pelvic physical therapist for a while. Then she went on mat leave. I was going to a trainer who was trained by Bellies Inc. And things did start to get better. There's a core breath method you can use, and that definitely made a huge difference because after my second one, if I had driven from Kitchener to Toronto drinking coffee, I mean, it was like, you better get out of my way or we're all going to have a problem here. So I couldn't control. I felt like I didn't have as much bladder control, or at least being able to hold it in. And I'm not a senior. I felt like I shouldn't have these problems, but other moms would say, oh, it's okay if you pee a little bit. I pee a little when I play soccer or run or clap. And it turned out, it's not normal. It's just very common. So I found myself in the leagues of other women that I'd heard talk about these things, and I never wanted to be in that club. So it was harder after the second child, because the problems got worse, and the same thing with intimacy came up again. But that got better after going to a pelvic PT. So, some people cringe a little bit thinking of doing that, but if you got into a car accident and crushed your pelvis, you'd be going to a pelvic PT. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do that, especially after having a C-section, in the hospital, very often they don't tell you how to get out of bed. They don't tell you need to massage the scar. So if you had shoulder surgery and there was a scar, they'd be working on the scar, crunching out all the tissue. So, these sorts of things did help. And I go to an osteopath who helps when things are out, or I have muscles or ligaments that are kind of hung up. So this time around has been harder, but I've had more support, and using the core breath method to do anything when you engage your core, and finding out that my core isn't actually, when they say, oh, let's do our core exercises, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. But finding out, how it really takes a lot of concentration to feel where they are, and there's just this one simple exercise that definitely made a huge difference in intimacy pain and being able to control whether or not I could, get to the bathroom on time or stop. Even when you're going, you can't stop if some of the muscles are in spasm.
Okay.
So I found out a lot more with the second one.
Wow. You're telling me a lot more too, because as I said, I did speak with one of the co-founders, but I didn't even know that part of the problem could be a spasm, when it's like, it's firing and doesn't really know what it's doing. So that's really interesting. So it's still a progress, obviously. Your second is 2 years old and you're still working at it. It's still...
Yeah, and part of that is because I just stopped going to the pelvic PT when she went on mat leave. Life has been busy. I'm in sales, and a lot of my stuff is, in the GTA, and I live in SWO. So, I would have to say you have to continue having therapy or learning the exercises that help you rectify the problem, because what it is the fascia around your all your muscles, it's loose. Right. So if you try to correct that the wrong way, you exacerbate the problem. And the way that everything is connected between the multifidi, that helps, along your spine, and your pelvic floor, your diaphragm, and your transverse abdominis, trying to get all that to work again. It's hard, because I know that I've got one thing is fixed, because, with my pelvic floor, I know that personally I had a problem with tone, which means kind of like a spasm where it's just going all the time, 24/7 in one part. And then other things just probably have to do with the muscles coming in from the hips, connecting to the pelvic floor. So, at least, one thing is fixed. The intimacy part is at least a lot better.
Yes.
The rest, every single night when I go to bed, I still feel pain on my lower back. And I do need to make the time to go back to my pelvic PT in Kitchener, and make sure that I'm doing the core breath correctly when I do exercise. Just because, you can do planks and not even know you shouldn't be doing that, because your organs are trying to come out from in between your abs.
Yeah.
Or you try to do something that isolates your core and everything tries to come out of your,
not supposed to come out there, no. You did make a good point as well, that, for some people it is a scary thought to go to a pelvic floor physiotherapist. I'm actually really, really, there's many people working at this. We really want it to be like the gold standard for each person to go and see a pelvic floor physiotherapist after having a baby, because like you said, after your first, you just have no idea what's going on down there. It could be completely normal, everything could be kind of going back to its original tonicity after having your baby. But if it's not, unless you have really, really obvious signs, you could have no idea that things are sort of rolling in that off direction. So we're trying to make it not so scary. So that's where you're kind of coming in to help us with that. Yeah.
Well, I would say sometimes it's not obvious either. So I've had mom friends who are teeny tiny, and just like I was, you don't see anything. And sometimes you're dismissed as hysteric, you need more KY. If you go and complain about that, or, oh, everybody has that problem and they can't control it. Just even subtle things. So one of my mom friends says she felt a lot of pressure when she was doing crunches. I said, you're not actually supposed to do crunches anyway. Crunches are bad for your back and everything else, and you can get it out of doing a plank. If you're feeling pressure, something's trying to come out.
Mm.
And, before you have a baby, everything's fine and all your muscles are typically nice and tight and hold everything in. But it's, after you've had a balloon that you've blown up a couple of times, it's the worst analogy, and it's not very flattering, but that's what they told me about my uterus and why, the second baby made me look pregnant when I found out I was pregnant. But it just, all those muscles that, they've, even something subtle can be a sign. It doesn't have to be super overt. And it really, my opinion now after two, and there's a great healthcare system here, and I had fantastic doctors where I went in Toronto. They still don't know. They don't know to tell you, you need to go to a pelvic physical therapist to get it checked out. Just like, you'd want to get checked out after any sort of major physical trauma or a surgery. And it's not treated that way. It's just treated as a rite of passage and get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So even, I would say people might not think that they have the signs, but I would definitely call a PT nearby and just say, what's the amount of time I should wait before I come in to just get checked to make sure that everything is either healing the right way or isn't, stuck in a constant state of tone, which this is the only time tone's bad.
Mm. It's true. Yeah. It's an interesting thing, but I mean, we are, even if you don't have a baby, we're not so aware of that area, which is why that doctors aren't really aware to know to tell us to go and get the assessment. So yeah, it just needs to be like the standard for you push out a baby, and then at some point you need to go and get that pelvic floor assessment.
Or have a baby cut out, not just push out.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for saying that. It's not just about pushing it out. No, it's cesarean as well. You've carried a baby, and after the birth of the baby, cesarean or vaginal, you need to go and get the assessment. You're absolutely right. So can you tell us a little bit about that first appointment with the physical therapist?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was, she asks you some questions, and you lay on the table, and she measures with her hand in your abs. So you lie down flat, and you just pull your head up, and it's kind of where her pinky is about at your belly button, and she pushes, and then turn your hand sideways, and that's how you can tell in between. But not invasive or anything. But really, I mean, if you've had a child, you've already had Jim, Biff, and Bob checking things out, right? So I was at a teaching hospital, so there were about 12 people in the room, and hi, this one's a hugger, this one's going to be a cuddler, a lot of hair, so at this point, just having one person in the room, it just felt a little bit like, I don't know, I could have a regular conversation. Okay. But if you're not comfortable, there are a number of women pelvic PTs, but to me, my health is more important than the embarrassment of going for a 30-minute appointment once a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just like the initial, when if you're not sure what to expect.
It'd be the same as going for a pelvic exam, I would say, just about, and so you get she checks I'm at work, vagina, and you can also sometimes end up she'll check your rectum also, because I guess she's checking for tears. So sometimes, they're checking in both places. It doesn't always happen. I didn't have that, but I do know that was part of what was described in the appointment.
Right.
So that is what you'd expect. It'd be just kind of like you're going to a new gynecologist, I guess.
Right. Yeah, very true. So I know, Danielle, the reason I was connected with you was because you used to be in a Salsa Babies class with our chief salsa mama, Jennifer Matthews. Is that right?
Yeah. I actually, I was in 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You did 2 or 3 sessions?
Yeah, I did 1 or 2 with my daughter, and then I think 1 or 2 with my son, and then I actually had to drop out because of diastasis recti.
Right. And was it because of the pain, or someone told you needed to stop?
I was told I needed to stop because, you're using your core muscles, or you're using your abs, and sometimes certain things that you do, certain ways that you lift things or carry things exacerbate the problem. So it was keeping me in the same state of not being able to get my abs together, partially because he's just so big.
Right.
So unfortunately I had to stop taking Salsa Babies, and I had so much fun doing it. But it's just one of those things, before you take on any exercise program, you should go to the PT.
Yeah. No, I even though you're saying there's sometimes you can't do salsa babies, we know that, and we want to be able to support our moms with that. We don't want someone in the class dancing when they're actually causing more damage to their body. That's not the point of our program. So I do have another chat scheduled with a baby wearing educator, but do you know what, because the separation is measured in finger breaths, correct? Like it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 fingers that you can put in the abdomen. Do you know at what point women are advised to not baby wear?
I've been told that 2 fingers is normal. You know, you probably don't have any fingers before kids, but you know, like 1.5 to 2 fingers is normal. Mm-hmm. But I have heard of people having an 8-finger separation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay. So at the point that I was told not to, I was still at, I think, 4.5.
Okay. So it's like the extreme separation.
Yeah. Well, and the best way to picture it is if you have on a, you know, say a zip up jacket, mm-hmm. and you connect the zipper at the bottom, but you just hold the top together, you know, and it's all together, even though it's not zipped. Yep. Lean forward and you'll see that the middle buckles out like this.
Right.
That's what your abs do.
Right.
So with the baby on, especially when they're heavy and you're kind of doing like this, sometimes I can see why they say not to do it, but I was just told I was a little bit too far gone at the time to continue.
Weren't you uncomfortable anyway wearing him in the carrier?
You know what? He was so tall. He was always kicking me just about in the knees. But other than that, he was just a little heavy, but I don't think it was uncomfortable because I think you just become used to any discomfort that comes with it.
Right.
And I had a bad habit of, I would stick my belly out so I wouldn't slide off.
Okay.
I'm holding him. So you stick your hip out or your belly. So I probably made my problem worse than.
Oh yeah. Picturing that makes my body hurt. Oh, your back would have just been, your osteopath when you went in for that first appointment must have been like, oh dear, your body is screaming.
Well, he still does, because he'll say, he can notice that I don't have any core strength because I've been refraining from doing any, the core exercises that we're all brought up to think are so strengthening, but actually pull your abs apart if you try to isolate your core now. Mm. So although I've worked on other parts of my body, it's I have to do more put a concentrated effort behind doing the core breath, because that just helps pull it all back together, and then you can get back to normal stuff.
Right.
It's just that, crunches are bad for everybody.
Yeah, I would hope to, and that as you're doing these, like the muscle memory starts to come back too, so you're not having to like overthink about every time you have to sneeze or bend over. Like hopefully sometimes your body just kind of can get that back together again. You're not having to overthink every step that you take, Well,
instinctually, what I learned from a summit I attended recently is that right before you do that stuff, your body does get ready. Your core does get ready, but you do have to retrain it in a lot of instances. So some people may be lucky and it happens more quickly. Right. I've got great muscle memory everywhere whenever I've, done anything else. But when it comes to this area, in the abs, after the second child, it's been a lot harder. It doesn't seem like it's toning up as quickly, but also I need to think about it more so that it becomes second nature, that when I breathe, I, try to do the breath the way that, I was coached to do.
So can you say, like, from your experience with all this, what 3 things would you want, would you want, oh my goodness. Would you want to share with new moms? What would you really hope that moms could take in?
I would, what I tell people, even when I meet people and they're holding their grandchild, I'm like, have you told your daughter to go to a pelvic physical therapist yet? Mm. Because I would say that is the biggest thing, because you've chosen in most cases to share a life with a partner. And part of that life that you share has to do with, being with them and not losing, the glue of your relationship. And it is very draining and stressful when you associate intimacy with pain.
Right.
So and then not being able to control yourself and get back to your regular daily activities without thinking, oh, that new Depends commercial has pretty panties now. That's not where I want to be.
No.
So my number one piece of advice is if you've had a child, regardless of how that baby was liberated, you need to go to a pelvic physical therapist and make sure that everything is fine. And don't let your doctor tell you that you are hysteric because something still hurts, or things just aren't back to the way that they were, because it'll take a while to heal.
Mm-hmm.
But some things are a bit of a train wreck afterwards. It has to be looked at and fixed and needs therapy.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Do you feel like something else?
The second thing would be don't ever do crunches. Mm-hmm. Or sit-ups. Those are bad for you. They're bad for everyone's back. Planks are better, but you still need to be checked for diastasis, because if you have a huge separation, you don't want to do planks and have all of your organs pushing on your abdomen where the muscles have separated. So if you want to get back into an exercise regimen, these yummy mummy tummy stupid boot camps that make you feel like you're ugly because you had a child, I hate those. I hate when I see that those are advertised. People are forgetting you just generated a life. Your body's a little bit worn out. Things are stretched and need some time. You don't have to look like I guess Posh Beckham right after. Give yourself time, but don't do those workouts, those boot camps, because you can really make your problems worse if your abs are separated, or if you're having a problem with your pelvic floor not holding everything up, because you don't want anything to try to come out. One friend had prolapse with her bladder. You can also have your cervix try to come out. Mm-hmm. So doing those boot camps where it's bang, 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 run, lift stuff that's heavy, I would definitely say don't do that. Mm-hmm. My last piece of advice, the third one, would be whenever you have a newborn, the little sleepers with a zipper, that's definitely better. Because trying to do those buttons when you're really tired and you're a new parent.
That's awesome. Totally unrelated, but it's still really helpful, because I actually found that when I had my little ones as well, like, the snaps were good for at nighttime, keep them warm, yeah. But the zipper was also easier for me to get them on. So that's really practical.
Yeah, because everybody gets you the cutest little things, but buttons in the middle of the night when you're like this, and when my son peeing across my chest, the faster you can get them warm again and keep them asleep if you're changing them, I tell everybody that, and when I buy sleepers, I buy the zippers for them, so it's just fast.
Yeah. And I liked what you said as well. Like I was just thinking about something when you were talking about the Posh Beckham kind of look. It's so important that we understand. And when you were talking about the, not doing crunches and things like that, it's fundamentally, we're not really understanding what we're doing when we're doing those exercises. Like we think it's about making those muscles, but it's not actually. And Sam, the co-founder of Belly Zinc, was saying, you actually are,
you're pulling them apart.
Perpetuating the mommy tummy, because if you're crunching forward, you're actually rounding it. So it's really about understanding our bodies and learning what the core muscles are. And if you want to have your tummy come back flatter again at any point, whether you've had a baby or not, you need to really understand like the mechanics of your body and where your muscles are and how to work with them appropriately. So it's really amazing advice that you just gave. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I try not to give unsolicited advice, but whenever anybody has a child, or one of my coworkers has got a wife, like if it's not the woman having the baby, I'll still say, you know what, I'll send you some links. These might be good. Because if somebody doesn't tell you, you don't know. I had no idea until that stroller fit class where somebody said, wow, Danielle, you got the biggest hole in class.
Right. Yeah. So we need to, you're right. You're absolutely right. You need to be planting the seed anywhere that you can, telling people. It's like that fine line of giving overbearing advice and like interjecting where it's not wanted, but also just saying, have you heard of this? And that's maybe all you have to say. Have you heard of?
Yeah, because it's like a public service announcement, but nobody wants to hear about vaginas. diastasis, right?
But we need to hear about it. We need to talk about it. That's where the baby comes from. Anyhow, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I hope that more of us start talking about the pelvic floor and getting to assessments after having our babies, even if we don't notice any signs. So thank you very much, Danielle.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, chat again soon.
Okay, bye.